Hello, if you've made it this far, you've made it to week 6 and the last lecture of this particular MOOC experience. And what I'd like to do in this one is to really challenge you that what matters is not only what you know, but what matters as well is your kind of personal engagement. And I've put together a collection of images that are extremely interesting and significant for me, and I would challenge you and encourage you to do something similar, to take a set of images from which you can draw personal energy and personal engagement. So often the environmental movement has been characterized by a kind of hand-wringing, the world is falling apart and everything's coming undone, and if we don't do something we're going to be hit on the head. And as true as these things may be, I don't think they're very motivational. And so what I'm going to give you is the kind of things that motivate me, with the encouragement that you'll put together something similar at some point for what motivates you. This is an image that comes from Serbia. I don't know the name of the river. I don't remember that, but it's a delightful little tea house, a little place that you can go across in a boat in the summertime and perch up on this rock and have a coffee or a tea break in the middle of the river. Strikes me as a delightful thing to do, but the reason why I've included this is it sort of seems to me kind of analogous or kind of fable to the nature of what our civilization is like and what our planet is like. The conditions of habitability are kind of this precarious perch of the right conditions in the midst of fluxes of energies and flows that, if they were to fully inundate us, would wipe us away and carry us downstream. And yet we're able to have this existence, this moment of tranquility in the midst of the stream. And that just strikes me as a sort of image not only of a fantastic tea house, but also of a really amazing way that we can visualize the earth. I'm going to start with a bunch of images of the sun and water, and those seem so appropriate because, of course, the sun is our source of all the energy that really drives the earth in a significant way. And that interplay of sun with water produces one of the most significant carriers. It's also one that I think for us humans brings immense satisfaction and tranquility. The sun is a thermonuclear reactor, and yet it's shielded from us from this amazing multi-layered atmosphere that we've been learning about, with reflections and refractions and a kind of partition of this energy over the entire surface. There is just immense number of images that give you that sense of the glowing power that lies behind the earth. And sunrises and sunsets particularly capture and reflect that energy. It allows the sun to get below the clouds in a sense and reflect that energy back to us. This was very close to the equinox, a picture taken in Christchurch in 2012. Again, just almost throughout the year, there's multiple times where we get that interplay of light and cloud and water, and it's just one that I'd encourage you to savor and to take to heart and enjoy as you travel through. This was just this last summer, and the setting sun was just capturing this bank of clouds, representing this amazing reflection process in a lake that we were swimming and boating and enjoying a great family reunion on. One of the things that's very characteristic of clouds, of course, is that you get spaces and you get gaps. You get upflows, and the upflows we get condensation processes that produce this effect of a cloud. But in order to balance the upflows, there's got to be downflows. And where the downflows are occurring, these gaps between the clouds are almost invariably characterized by clear sky, because the descending air will warm and it will cause a dispersal of any condensation processes. Cooling when we go up, producing clouds; warming when we go down, producing clear sky. And the spacing is a kind of characteristic of this alternation between upflows and downflows that are occurring around the planet all the time as part of that energetic earth processes. And of course the possibility of immense changes in light and shadow and texture and growth and biology and different components that are part of what we enjoy in these scenes. I included this picture in the sense because it is such, again, an analogy of what happens with respect to the characteristics of the natural system behind and the human system, which is grabbing this and cultivating it and making modern life possible, but so often producing a kind of unsightly deterioration of what would have been the natural process. This would have been a nicer picture without the human power systems in the front, and yet we live in this system system, by the grace of this system. Water is an immensely fascinating form of solar energy. The form of this concentration, we started the course off by looking at Niagara Falls. This is another great northern river in Canada. A shot from the helicopter, you can see a little bit of a reflection from that in this wonderful cascade that so reminds us of the energy cascade that characterizes the entire planet. It's not true for everybody that poetry is your cup of tea, but there's a particular poet who I particularly enjoy. His name is Archibald MacLeish, and here's a reflection on the nature of the creative process in a poem that he entitles Poem, but it's also a wonderful image of water. So I'm going to attempt to recite that for you now and hope that as we look through these images of water and waterfalls that you're not too bored by the whole process. MacLeish says this: "Water is heavy silver over stone. Water is heavy silver over stone's refusal. It does not fall. It flows. It fills every fault of the stone, every hollow. River presses its heavy silver self down into stone, and stone refuses. What runs, swirling and leaping in the sun, is not the river, it's stone's refusal of the river." I think that's a marvelous image, a marvelous set of observations that what we have here is not just a surface process, but one that's been rejected from being a subsurface process. Water is flowing almost everywhere on the earth, usually not visible. When we get a waterfall, it's because the geology has conscribed with the hydrology and the energetic processes to produce this amazing effect. This is in the southern hemisphere in the famous area of Milford Sound in New Zealand. We were fortunate enough to spend a night on a boat there in 2012. What was fascinating is it poured and poured the night before, and every surface of this mountainous fjord was covered with waterfalls. Water was flowing everywhere, and everything was alive with water, but hard to take good photographs because the water kept getting in the way. But while we were on the boat at night, we were fortunate enough that it cleared up. And one of the things about our energetic planet is conditions are continually changing. And in the morning, it did this. It went from overcast and water flowing everywhere to a very quick draining of these hills as a result of their low permeability. They don't absorb much water except in the higher elevations as snow. Snow storage plays a huge role for the planet, and we get this marvelous clear sky and this interplay, these steep slopes that characterize Milford Sound. And as we were leaving, we took one final shot, and we're there on a magnificent morning where, again, energetic processes are all around us: sun and radiation, reflection and light and shadow and growth, and a tremendous illustration of what makes our Earth so magnificent. The gateway between solar radiation and biological radiation almost always is mediated through the gateway of vegetation, of photosynthetic plants that are able to capture that sun's rays and turn them into organic matter. And I thought this picture of the sun through the trees was a kind of fabled kind of illustration again of that gateway. And around us we have this profusion of things that grow, things that harness that solar energy, things that bring, again, tranquility and stability and growth and a habitability that allows us to be part of that. We talked about how the Earth recycles energy, but of course organic material is constantly being recycled by the organic and biological processes. And this is a swamp, and in the swamp there's a tree that's died, and of course this vibrant and rich growth that's being characterized by this growth on the old death, the recycling of energy that takes place in the biological system. I got to share with you one other poem. This is a magnificent one by Louis MacNeice. Again, I'm going to attempt to read it, but I encourage you to tune this out if you'd rather read it on your own. The room was suddenly rich, and the great bay window was spawning snow and pink roses against it, soundlessly collateral and incompatible. The world is suddener than we fancy it. World is crazier and more of it than we think, incorrigibly plural. I peel and portion a tangerine and spit the pips, and fill the drunkenness of things being various. And the fire flames with a bubbling sound, for world is more spiteful and gay than one supposes, on the tongue, on the eyes, on the ears, in the palms of one's hands. There is more than glass between snow and huge roses, and more than just a thin veneer between the human conditions that produce sustainability and these fluxes of energy that characterize our energetic planet. We think about the world being various and incorrigibly plural. I thought of this picture, which is just this amazing piece of vegetation that's captured in it the dew of the morning, and of course a fly sunning itself, a microclimate in the midst of other vegetation. This old tree delighted me a great deal on Akaroa, near Akaroa, near New Zealand again. It looks like an old man bent over and out for a stroll along the beach, pulling its ancient body along. But of course that's a projection and imposition, but it's still delightful. Water is present not only in vapor form and not only in liquid form, but the forces and the processes that produce ice and ice formation we saw played a huge role in the overall circulation systems in the planet. And I thought a few winter images were worthwhile showing as well, showing again that interplay, that very much more dispersed light that you have in a wintertime conditions where the sun never gets far above the horizon. The earth cools from the energy that it received during the summertime, and near the fringe of the lake, in this case Lake Ontario, one has ice being formed and winter skies that have a characteristic view to them as well. And everywhere there's phase change, everywhere there's a kind of cunning interaction between light and sound and water. And this is again Niagara Falls in the background with this ironwork from a fence. That's a partition that allows flow and water and condensation. The sky and sun and light and snow are not just important, but they're also beautiful. Was in Regina in the prairies area of Canada at one point, and there was this delightful situation where there had been a freeze and then there had been a rain, and it looked like these geese were simply able to walk on the water in some sort of majestic sense. And again, the reflections and the calmness of this clear sky day were very characteristic. And I think one of those other boundary areas, of course, are those areas between beach and where we have the atmosphere, the oceans, and the land meeting often in this fantastic interplay. A morning sun, which is causing this process of mist, the extra cool air near the ground as a result of the nighttime cooling produces this effect as the solar energy comes in of producing this ground cloud, but this evaporative process that will soon produce a warm and lovely day. Coasts are just marvelous places to spend time and to have our spirits lifted again, our minds refreshed. This is what it's worth protecting the world for. Not because we have to, not because it will beat us up if we don't, but because it's still beautiful and still worth preserving, still worth caring for. Interplay of light and coast of waters comes in almost every conceivable color and texture and pattern. This is Flower Pot Island in the Great Lake of in Ontario. This is the Georgian Bay side of that area, right where Lake Huron and Georgian Bay meet, and you've got this beautiful rock formation. If you ever get a chance to go, the water is famous for its clarity and for its color. This is fresh water, not salt water, and yet it's still unbelievably clear and almost tropical-like in its appearance. Place for us to ponder and to reflect and watch the reflection of light off the water. Something to rejuvenate the spirit and the heart and say, yeah, this is a life that's worth engaging. There's a complexity here, but also basic structure and order. First principles go a long way to explaining what we see, and yet there's a mystery that's beyond explanation. And it's into that I encourage you to reflect and dwell along with the other components. This is a final picture of winter time at Niagara Falls, and you know me on the one side, and I have to show the significant other in my life, my wife Joy of 34 years, that's beside me, and this being one of the photographers that's taken a number of the pictures that you've just seen. and of course a key part that energizes my life.